Good morning, Minnesota. Welcome to the June edition of Coffee Talk, Components of 4E. We'll get started by going over the agenda this morning. We're going to have welcome and introductions. We'll have housekeeping and Tennyson warning. We'll talk and give my favorite mentor of the month. We're going to welcome our guest speakers, Paula and Debbie. And then we'll get into the presentation for components of 4E. And then, of course, we'll have some closing announcements. So let's go ahead and get started. As always, attendees have been muted upon entry. To speak, please raise your hand using the reaction emoji at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be unmuted by one of our panelists. Questions can also be submitted using the chat feature, monitored by our SSIS Business Ops staff. Closed captioning can be enabled using the CC button located on the bottom left of your screen, and this session is being recorded and will be posted on the Minnesota Child Welfare Training Academy website in the very near future. Because this is being recorded, we do have to show the Tennyson warning. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to read over the Tennyson warning, and then we'll get started. All right, hopefully that was enough time for you to get through the Tennyson warning. I am Ross. I'll be your host today. I am one of the e-learning instructional designers on the training and development side of the SSIS User Support Group, and we are also part of the Business Integration Division of DHS. So I am going to turn the mic over to our Miss Heidi so she can make an announcement. Here we go. Go ahead, Heidi.
Thanks, Ross. Good morning, everybody. We'd like to say congratulations to Cindy Roberts from Faribault Martin for being nominated and recognized as our July Mentor of the Month. Cindy was nominated by our colleague Rich Odom, who shared the following. Cindy is very knowledgeable, efficient, and responsive to requests for help or guidance. She does a fantastic job keeping us updated on coming changes, tutorials, and other news. She sends task reminders and is always willing to respond quickly to questions with great explanations and help navigating the various challenges and keeping everything up to date and correct. Cindy is polite, respectful, and cheerful in her interactions and has a great sense of humor, which is awesome when we're frustrated and struggling to problem solve complex situations and document requirements. Cindy is kind and patient exactly when kindness and patience are most needed. In short, Cindy is a tremendous asset to our agency, a fantastic resource for staff, and a pleasure with whom to work. So congratulations and thank you, Cindy. We appreciate you. And if anybody out there has a mentor you'd like recognized as Mentor of the Month, please reach out to me via email. I will put my address in the link, and nominations are accepted at any time. So thank you very much. I hope you all have a good day. And back to you.
Thanks, Heidi. Congratulations, Cindy. Next, we'll move on to a special announcement from our very own Eric Kratt.
Good morning, everybody. This is Eric with the SSIS User Support Team. I wanted to make a quick announcement with everybody that I am posting a position for a physical trainer / subject matter expert, and that posting is live, effective immediately. Once this PowerPoint is sent out, you can go directly to the state career website as an external applicant and search for job posting 7760. I'm looking for a very special blend of traits with this position. I'm looking for somebody who isn't afraid to talk openly with people, understands some of the instructional design principles and adult learning theory. And I'm also looking for some subject matter expertise by way of healthcare claiming, programs and services and SSIS admin, payments, service arrangements, and the child foster care report and some North Star components. We also have several physical things on the horizon that are going to change the face, including waiver reimagine and case management redesign. So it's time to fold physical training back into learning and development. And we're going to do so with this job posting here. So I'm hoping I find that special blend with all of those traits that I just listed. And I'm looking forward to your application. Back to you, Ross.
Thanks, Eric. What an option. What a great opportunity. Going to welcome our guest speakers. There's Paula and Debbie, and they'll go ahead and get going on their presentation. I'll give Paula a second here to share her screen, and I guess I have to unshare mine. So go ahead, Paula.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
And is my screen sharing?
it is now.
Okay, perfect. I'll just start by introducing myself. My name is Paula Katzenmeyer. I am a Title IV trainer. I typically cover the southwestern and west central area of Minnesota, providing Title IV training, technical assistance, anything related to foster care placements and Title IV eligibility determinations, and the coordination of foster care with transitioning to adoption and North Star kinship assistance. Also with me is Debbie Rederath. And Debbie, are you available? I'll get started. She may have had to step away for a second. Debbie does the exact same type of work that I do in training and technical assistance with Title IV, and she is currently serving Southeast and East Central Minnesota. We'd like to present today on Title IV, specifically for foster care placements. And about halfway through, we will be taking questions. So if you don't mind just holding the questions halfway through the presentation, we'll stop for questions as well as taking questions at the end. Any other housekeeping that I should take care of, Ross, before I get started?
No, ma'am, you can get going.
Okay.
Do your thing.
All right, sounds great. So Title IV in and SSIS, it is mandatory to use the electronic submissions that were set up between SSIS and Maxis here in Minnesota, and those requirements came into play because of the CCWIS and AFCARS requirements. So federal mandates that each state was required to establish a communication system for foster care placements and to communicate those foster care placements between SSIS and Maxis. SSIS entries are required so that we can properly and consistently communicate with Maxis, and that we can keep our records within Maxis and SSIS consistent between the two systems to avoid running into issues with Title IV claims when we submit our child foster care report. It's important that Maxis workers on the eligibility side do not make changes without receiving the information through that referral process from SSIS. So anything that is reported to them through the submission or the referral from SSIS, they then take action on within Maxis. When we're doing submissions or referrals from SSIS, we want those to be done within the first few days after placement. I like to say as soon as possible after placement. There are two primary reasons for that. The first is to initiate MA foster care or MAFC. Effective January 1st, 2021, all children or youth in foster care or children receiving North Star kinship assistance became entitled to MA without a healthcare application and also without having to meet any financial eligibility requirements. And that automatic MA or the MAFC is for all children in foster care receiving North Star kinship assistance, regardless of Title IV eligibility. The second reason that it's important to do that communication as quickly as possible after the placement is to start the Title IV determination process. As we all probably already know, some of those Title IV eligibility determinations can take some time to gather all the information that's needed. So the sooner we can start that process, the better. In addition to the initial submission that's done as soon as possible after the placement, there are also ongoing submissions or referrals that are made anytime there's relevant data entered into SSIS. A few examples of that are when CHIPS is adjudicated. So if that was not, CHIPS had not been adjudicated at the start of the placement episode, and that happens a bit into the placement, that is communicated at the time or as soon after that CHIPS adjudication happens. Also, when you receive additional court actions. So if there's a court action in regard to reasonable efforts to finalize permanency, those are sent over after that initial submission. And also we don't forget that when a continuous placement episode ends, if a foster care placement ends, there's a very quick process to just immediately report that placement ending over to Maxis. And Debbie is now back with us. So Debbie, I will let you take it from here to talk about the preliminary entry of information in SSIS.
Thank you, Paula. Appreciate it very much. So inside SSIS, there's very few details that need to be entered in order to get this submission process started. So the important ones, or the ones that are necessary, is to have a continuous placement opened. To also make sure then that you have the authority tab within there set up correctly with the correct authority that the agency has. Then the placement location tab or folder needs to be updated with where our child is located at. We also need to get that cleared to Swindex. That may or may not be a step that you do. Somebody else in your agency might get that, tying together the clearing of Swindex. I always like to warn people, if you start to notice multiple PMI numbers, start that process to get those merged down and get that issue resolved, because that can be problematic. And then if your child is court ordered into placement, we do need to have the court action out there. The child findings tab is very critical to proper 4E calculation and determinations. If you know it, get it in there, but it's not a required tab at this stage. You do not ever have to wait for that paper copy or that MGA copy to become available to enter that court action. This is why the preferred method is that the placing worker enter the majority of this information, if not all of it, because they were at that court hearing. They know what happened. They know they had the hearing. They can get this information entered as quickly as possible so we can comply care requirements, as well as getting that 4E determination going quickly. Okay, so these are some of the slides that actually show the areas inside SSIS, and we'll apologize up front that they're tiny, but there's a lot of data on SSIS slides. So this is the start of the continuous placement. This is the area that we actually begin our child in care and the appropriate details. So you'll see some of the arrows that you see on there. One of them being the supervising agency. Some of you do operate under correctional agreements, other tribal agreements, but most of the time it's going to be your county social services that's going to be legally responsible for these kiddos. So make sure you're picking the correct details on those drop downs so that we are getting the accurate information as to what the status is of our foster care child headed into care. So the authority tab. So this is the second tab on a continuous placement. This is where, if you follow the red arrows, we are telling the system if we have a voluntarily placed child, a court-ordered child, if it's a protective hold, this needs to match the details of the case. So if on this authority tab, you are telling SSIS we have a court-ordered placement effective June 15th, there had better be a court action effective June 15th. So they all kind of have to tie together. If you're telling it you have a protective hold or a police hold, there better be a protective hold or a police hold that exists for that date. So accuracy, make sure that you have the supporting documentation somewhere in your agency record as well.
Debbie, did we lose your audio?
Oh, I don't know. I'm still talking.
Yep, we lost your audio there for a minute. So start with the placement screen.
Okay.
I don't know. We lost you after the authority tab. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So this placement screen is where we are telling SSIS where our kiddo is located, what the foster home or the facility name, location, all of that relevant information about that placement location. And then the court actions. We talk a lot about this court action because this is a pretty critical piece as far as Title IV eligibility and what data is shared between SSIS and Maxis. So right in the center, you will see that big drop down of all of the actions that are out there, a variety of dispositions. We do want you to complete that as accurately as you can. It's super helpful when we are reviewing court actions to see, oh, here's our CHIPS adjudication order, or here's our transfer of legal responsibility order. Kind of pinpoints down what happened in that order. And then the effective date of that order, we are using the placement court hearing date, not the judge's signature date. The second part of a court action is this child findings tab. And I'm going to start right at the top, the drop down for the continuous placement. Once you select a continuous placement, this court action is tied to that continuous placement episode. So make sure that we're selecting the correct continuous placement. The best interest statement date and the reasonable active effort statements, those are typically in the very first court action. Although for 4E purposes, we do get a 60-day window for the reasonable or active efforts. We don't train that way. We want you to get those all done as soon in the placement episode as you can. The best interest is required at that initial placement hearing. So those dates, once you have them, do not change for that entire placement episode. So they can remain blank as you enter subsequent orders, or you can put them back to the original removal order date. Either way is not incorrect or more preferred over the other. And then the final date field, the reasonable or active efforts to finalize permanency plan, that data field is going to change. Our social workers do a fabulous job of getting into court often. And when they do that, they are usually getting the applicable language that we need. So you will see changes in that reasonable efforts to finalize permanency date field often, typically every 60 to 90 days for most of our children in out-of-home care. Some of the proofing messages that will happen if our two systems are not aligned is we will get the proofing message 1156, best interest statement from Maxis does not match SSIS. That's a problem. On the Maxis side, their corrective actions are not always simple. And so we really want to stress getting activities done accurately to begin with so that we do not have corrective actions needed on the Maxis side. A lot of times those will require background technical patching. So we really want to make sure that our data is correct from the get-go. And you will get a proofing message if something is not correct in the best interest statement, specifically tied to that child findings tab, and then what Maxis did on their end. So this is one proofing message for best interest. We also have another proofing message, 1101, effective date of a court-ordered placement must be on or after the best interest statement date. So although we're not doing the detailed 4E training, best interest must happen at that first court action. So this is the proofing message that tells us something isn't jiving with that requirement. And then for voluntarily placed children, and again, we're not really doing the 4E training, but we have a 180-day window in which we can get a best interest judicial finding for voluntarily placed children. That is not, it's not extendable. It's day 180. If you do not get the best interest statement on day 181, that foster care case will close, or that 4E eligibility will close. So this is a pretty critical one to make sure we don't miss. And there's a proofing message that comes out there to show that. And then on the permanency side, so I've already talked about how good of a job our social workers do getting permanency language, getting into court. There is a proofing message, the 1104, that is going to warn you that we have a reasonable efforts to finalize permanency plan is overdue. Typically, this message will come from SSIS not being updated, not necessarily the Maxis side, because you did not submit to Maxis if you didn't update it in SSIS. So Maxis workers aren't supposed to take a date from an email or from a routing slip saying we've had reasonable efforts to finalize permanency. It must go into SSIS followed by a submission to Maxis for that information. And then on the Maxis side, there are some detailed steps they need to do to continue our ability to claim Title 4E. We call them certification reviews, reimbursability reviews, terms like that you will hear. Those are specific to Maxis activities. And if the Maxis worker hasn't done their activities in a timely fashion, there is a proofing message on the SSIS side saying we're missing some details from Maxis. These messages were pretty critical for the Maxis workers during the COVID moratorium on reviews. Maxis workers didn't necessarily get the systems help on the Maxis side, so these messages became pretty critical to making sure we didn't miss certification reviews on the Maxis side. So you do get this warning if the Maxis worker hasn't conducted their reviews. A gentle reminder to your financial worker to please conduct that certification review. We'll clear this message. And then once you hit the year mark, now we're going to start losing funding. So there's two different messages, one warning you at the 9-month mark that it hasn't happened, and then at the 12-month mark, funding will actually stop based on this missing certification within Maxis. So we've hit our first break for questions. I think somebody was monitoring the chat. I can't. So
Yep,
let's see what we got. Thank you.
We have a couple questions. The first question is from Clarissa. How do we code the foster care MA in MMIS so that it doesn't create a PMAP? We always use the MM exclusion, but it doesn't work if they live off the reservation.
I'm going to defer that one to Paula. She has worked diligently on the health care program for foster care children. So Paula, do you want to answer that one for her?
I will attempt, if I understood it correctly. So foster children are not automatically exempt. I mean, just by being in foster care does not exempt them from managed care. So I'm not sure that I completely understand the question. And I'm also not familiar with the specific codes for like the code. So Clarissa, was it Carissa or Clarissa?
Clarissa. Yep.
Maybe what I could suggest is, do you want to submit that question via email to either Debbie or I, and we can, address it fully outside of this presentation? It's more related, it sounds like it's more related to managed care exclusion. All children in foster care should be coded 25X. I can answer that piece of it. Except, there's one exception to that, adopted children. Their coding does not change. They're still 09 or 10X, depending on if it's state adoption assistance or federal adoption assistance, 4E adoption assistance, because that is higher in the healthcare hierarchy. But all other children in foster care should be 25X. Clarissa, if that did not answer your question in full, please send one or both of us an email.
And then do you have your email handle, or do you have a CRM queue that you prefer them to send questions in?
Actually, we could put our emails in the chat.
Okay. And then Kathy asks, will this training be offered again? I have team members not able to attend today. I did say that we will post the recording of this training on our Minnesota Child Welfare Training Academy website for future viewing in 5 to 10 business. Well, I didn't say that part, but 5 to 10 business days it should be posted. And I provided a link, but I'm wondering if this is a training, Paula or Debbie, that you will offer again in the future.
Absolutely. We do these customized. This is a condensed quick version with only the hour time limit, but we do these customized trainings in local agencies all the time. That is part of the training and technical assistance we provide. So reach out to one of us and we will review your training needs and get something scheduled for you and your staff as to what everybody needs and wants to hear about. So yes, that's what we're here for.
All right. And then Renee asks, so if a placement is first a protective hold and then court is held within a couple of days for an EPC, should the agency wait to do the submission until after court?
Agencies can do it either way. They can get that protective hold submission, and Paula's going to get into that in the second half. Or you can wait for the EPC hearing because there are provisions. It's probably easiest and best to just wait until the EPC, especially if the agency knows they're going to assume foster care placement authority. But either way, we do have to make sure those children get on the appropriate healthcare program, depending on the path they take once that EPC hearing is held. Some come into foster care and some get returned home.
Yep, and I will cover that more in a future slide.
So a little bit more context by the question from Clarissa. They put the exclusion in for children living on a reservation, but it doesn't work if they live off of the reservation. I don't know if that adds any context, or if you'd rather continue to take that offline.
I think we better continue to address that offline. That makes sense that it wouldn't take it if the child is living off reservation. So I think we need some clarification of the policy of using that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that's the last question I see in the chat thus far.
Okay. Great. If you have any other questions, put them in the chat and we will be addressing questions again at the end. But I will then move forward with the next piece, which is how do we communicate this information? So in SSIS, under Client Eligibility Log, there are 5 folders. The top 2, the 4E Eligibility folder and the 4E Reimbursability folder, are display only in SSIS. So you can't actually enter any information into those folders. What happens in those folders is once action is taken within Maxis to approve Title 4E eligibility or deny Title 4E eligibility, that information will populate from Maxis and through a referral and populate into that 4E eligibility folder in SSIS. So you can actually see within SSIS what action has been taken on a Title 4E for a Title 4E determination. Again, that's that first folder under Client Eligibility Log. If it's a 4E eligible child and the eligibility workers are doing the ongoing reviews and certification of maintenance reimbursement, when they do the review and certification, that information will then come over to SSIS and populate into that second folder, the 4E reimbursability folder. So again, they are display only in SSIS and there for you to see what action has been taken and sent over from Maxis. The last 3 folders under Client Eligibility Log is where you actually do your work within SSIS. The Foster Care Submission Worksheet and the 4E Reimbursability Submission Worksheet have different placement dates and data on them. So we'll be taking a look at both of those. And then that 5th folder is where you actually go in to create a new submission and send it over to Maxis. So for an initial referral, when a child initially goes into foster care, we create a foster care submission worksheet. Go down to that 5th folder, create a new foster care submission, and simply click on the action button, Submit to Maxis. So it's very quick and easy. Debbie had talked previously about the preliminary screens that need to be entered before you can do an initial submission. And so once those preliminary screens are entered, they actually populate, those dates and information populate into the foster care submission worksheet. It's hard to see, but the submission worksheet is really broken down into 5 areas, and I'll try my best. The top area here is identifying information, the continuous placement start date, initial placement authority that came over from the authority tab, and again, those other areas that Debbie already covered, and the authority effective date. The second section is for initially court-ordered placements. So if it was a court-ordered placement, dates would populate into some of these fields in this next section. The third section is for initially voluntary placements. So a child who started out in a voluntary placement, dates would populate into that third block. The fourth block, foster care extension for youth 18 through 20-year-olds who can potentially qualify for extended foster care. So that is also reported through the submission and referral from SSIS to Maxis. And then lastly, the bottom section here is the newest area that's been added, and that information is for the approval of the MA for all children in foster care. So we need to be sending over right away, as soon after placement occurs, the child's citizenship status and whether or not they have any other medical or dental coverage. So those are the areas that are included on the foster care submission worksheet. Once that submission worksheet looks like it has all of the accurate dates in it, you go down to that 5th folder under Client Eligibility Log and create a new submission. And I like to call this the summary screen. It summarizes everything that was listed on the foster care submission worksheet. And if a 4E reimbursability submission worksheet had already been done, it would also pull the data from that into this summary screen. Nothing can be edited here. You'll notice there's no drop downs. The only drop down is, or two are actually on the screen, submit reason. So here's where you send the reason that is being, information is being sent from SSIS to Maxis. And the current example here is initial referral, so a brand new placement. None of these fields can be changed. There's no drop downs. Nothing can be changed there. So if something does not look accurate on this submission screen, you'd have to go back to the other area of within SSIS to make a correction on those preliminary SSIS screens in order for it to pull into the new submission. The only other drop down here is down at the bottom where you indicate your SSIS worker name. And in each agency, that drop down will include all staff within your agency who are SSIS workers. So you just choose the person from the drop down. Okay, if that summary screen or that submission screen looks accurate, you simply go to the action menu and submit it to Maxis. This happens real time. There's not like a batch job that has to run or an overnight anything. It happens real time. So within a few minutes, within a couple of minutes, the eligibility workers on the Maxis side will see that child's name and some information show up on what's called their foster care referral report. This is just an example of a fake one and very old one, but this is what the foster care referral report looks like. It includes the child's PMI number, if that child has ever been known to Maxis before, the child's name, the date the referral was sent over from SSIS, the continuous placement ID number tied to that placement episode, the SSIS worker name, and a referral reason. So that initial referral reason that you use in SSIS comes over as a numeric code in Maxis, but the eligibility workers can click a button to access that to see what that code means. So I just know from experience that 06 stands for initial referral. So that is what they see on the Maxis side. Once action is taken, first of all, to approve MAFC for every child who enters foster care. Again, they're entitled to MA without an application or without any financial eligibility requirements. The next step is to make that Title IV eligibility determination using the Title IV application. And once that information is all submitted and the eligibility worker is able to make that eligibility determination, there is an automatic referral that goes back, like I mentioned, back to SSIS into the 4E eligibility and or 4E reimbursability folder in SSIS. So this is what you would see back on the SSIS side. This is a screenshot of the 4E eligibility folder. What my eye immediately goes to is the block in the center that tells us initial eligibility test results eligible. And then you'll notice that all of these items indicated in that box either say not applicable or pass. If this was a case where 4E eligibility had been denied, that would be indicated here at the top of the box. And in that case, then one or more of these, what we call tests, would say failed. So you would know just by looking in the 4E eligibility folder in SSIS whether 4E was approved or it was denied, and you would be able to see why it was denied. And this is one place I like to just to remind folks, if a 4E eligibility determination is denied for lack of cooperation or lack of verification, I strongly recommend that you flag that case, because if we're able to, maybe the family will come comes back into the agency to apply for other benefits, or more often becomes more cooperative as your social worker or case manager is working with them, we can always go back and reconstruct that Title IV eligibility determination. And it's important to do that. Title IV is a very, it's a huge funding source for your agency, for one. And if we reconstruct a Title IV eligibility determination, your agency is able to claim back 5 quarters. So 4 quarters prior to the current child foster care report. So for the next child foster care report that's due in July, you'd still be able to have the opportunity to claim 4E reimbursement all the way back to April 1st, 2023. So again, this is an area where if a case 4E is denied for lack of cooperation or lack of verification, I ask eligibility workers to flag it on the eligibility workers case, and social workers or case managers to flag it on the social services case, so that if we can get whatever information was missing, we go ahead and do that and reconstruct that eligibility determination. Okay, so once that initial eligibility determination is done, we mentioned earlier, there are lots of reasons that referrals are sent or submissions are sent besides that initial referral. And I have no idea why these are numbered or ordered the way they are. Sometimes things we do don't make complete sense, and this is one of them. But the numeric code here is what Maxis workers see. In SSIS, you actually see the language. So discharge from care or continuous placement ends. That's one reason that a new submission should be sent. So once that placement end date, continuous placement end date is entered, it's simply to go in and create a new submission and submit it to Maxis. And they will immediately be notified that that foster care placement has ended. That notice will go directly to the foster care workers' daily worker messages. So the DAIL is what they call it. Another reason to send information or a referral after the initial referral has been done is if you're sending over best interest or reasonable efforts, any court findings that weren't originally sent. If there was a mistake in what was sent in the initial referral, use the reason sending corrected data. And you do want to use the reason that most closely fits and matches what you're sending over, because it's the only thing that gives the eligibility worker an indication of what to look for on their end. Reimbursability review. So when you are submitting the reasonable efforts to finalize permanency findings on an ongoing basis, I would recommend using the reimbursability review reason. That is what they need. They need that reasonable efforts to finalize permanency finding and date in order to complete their review and certification. So you could tell them you're sending this over so that they can complete their reimbursability review. Again, I have no idea why these are ordered the way they are, but initial referral we already talked about several times. Withdraw previous submission. It's not very commonly used, but one example of when it might be used is if you sent over a referral for a child who is in locked or secure corrections, like in Red Wing, where there are no non-secure programs there. Locked or secure correction is not a foster care setting. So if a child is in locked or secure corrections and is anticipated to remain there, a referral would not be done. So that could be a reason. You might have accidentally sent a referral and then realized, oh, this kid is placed in Red Wing. There's no non-secure programs there. I want to withdraw that referral or withdraw that submission. Change in supervising agency, that's more common when jurisdiction switches from maybe county social service agency responsibility to tribal social service responsibility. Send foster care extension information. You want to use that when a youth turns age 18. And you're sending over or making that decision whether that youth is eligible to remain in extended foster care. And I'm going to be talking more about extended foster care in just a minute. And then lastly, this is the newest reason. Initial referral during protective hold. So the question came up in the first half of the training this morning about when should you do that initial submission. And Debbie said it makes most sense to wait and do it after that first court order. And I will just reiterate that, yes. Because you don't know at the point of that police protective hold what's going to happen at that initial court hearing. And it happens quickly. When there's a police protective hold, they need to be in court within 72 hours. So it's not like you're waiting a long amount of time. If there's a situation where there's a police protective hold and you go into court and the judge decides that the child does not need to remain in foster care and sends the child back home, that is the situation where you would use this initial referral during protective hold. However, if there's a police protective hold, you go to court and the child is ordered to remain in foster care, in that situation, you'd want to use initial referral because that is a full referral then. The reason I say it that way is if you're sending over initial referral during protective hold and using that code, that's telling the eligibility worker that that child is entitled to MAFC or the automatic MA, but that your agency did not get legal responsibility for that child, so they would not be making a Title IV eligibility determination. A child is entitled to MAFC while they're on that 72-hour hold, so from the first of that month through the end of that month, or two, if it's a 72-hour hold that falls, the last day of one month and the first couple of days of the following month, they might be entitled to MAFC for 2 months. But your agency did not get legal responsibility through a court order or a voluntary placement agreement. In follow-up to that, there would not be a 4E determination completed. So that's why it's important to use the appropriate referral reason based on that scenario. Okay. Then a bit about extended foster care. There is a fairly new guide within the last year. It provides a wealth of information about extended foster care for youth ages 18, 19, and 20, and the eligibility requirements for those youth. I'm not going to go through the policies, but just so that you know, this was an option that Minnesota opted into to allow youth to remain in foster care up to the age of 21. Those youth can either be in a standard foster care setting, like all other children, or the one thing, the setting that's unique to youth is that they can also be in a supervised independent living setting. And that is a setting that is approved by the social worker or case manager. As long as that is approved as a supervised independent living setting, it's not like Title IV licensed or Title IV approved. As long as it's a supervised independent living setting approved by the social worker or case manager, they can be a 4E eligible child while placed in that setting, or while living in that setting. I shouldn't even say placed, but that can be, if they're in college, it could be a dorm or an apartment. They can be living with other people. They can have roommates. It's pretty wide open, again, as long as it's approved supervised independent living setting. In SSIS, it's tied to the continuous placement. Once that youth turns 17 and a half, you will start to see a couple of additional tabs tied to the continuous placement: an extension conditions tab and an extension reviews tab. And again, if you try to look for those, if you go into the case of a child who's 6 years old, you will not even see those. They don't exist until a child turns 17 and a half. This extension condition tab is where you'd indicate one of the 5 conditions that that youth meets in order to qualify to remain in extended foster care. There's 6 of them listed there, but you'll notice the top one is not eligible, no foster care extension condition applies. So according to that guide, you can read more about it, but a youth needs to meet one of 5 extension conditions in order to qualify to remain in extended foster care. If they were, at the time they turned 18, were in foster care and were 4E eligible, they also remain Title 4E eligible. The second tab there, the extension reviews tab, is necessary to complete every 6 months. So it's just asking or stating, I have reviewed the extension conditions tab and made necessary updates. You indicate the review date and worker name. And again, extension reviews are required every 6 months. As with any other placements, there are proofing messages that can exist if things are either not consistent between the systems or some type of action is not taken. This is an example of a warning message that appears for extended foster care cases if the extension review is not completed, has not been entered. So again, that's just another example of a proofing message that would need to be, this one is not prohibiting claiming, but it is a warning that the extension review needs to be completed timely. So on an ongoing basis in SSIS, as soon as there's any new foster care data available for a child, you would want to enter those areas within SSIS and then update the foster care submission worksheet if needed. It's not very often that things change on the foster care submission worksheet because those are the data elements from the beginning of the foster care placement. You would create a new 4E reimbursability submission worksheet in order to report if CHIPS is adjudicated or if there's been a reasonable efforts to finalize permanency finding. Some of those ongoing or things that happen after the initial foster care placement are recorded on the reimbursability submission worksheet. Once the worksheet looks complete, go down and create a new foster care submission in that 5th folder under client eligibility log. Use submit reason reimbursability review. And like I said previously, that's just helpful to let the eligibility worker know or give them an indication of what is being sent over in this new submission. Go down to the action menu and click submit to Maxis. This is a screenshot of the reimbursability submission worksheet. There's not a lot of data on it. Less than on the foster care submission worksheet. So it just, again, includes the supervising agency here. The most importantly, the data that you're including in this submission is, again, the CHIPS adjudication or CHIPS determination date and the ongoing reasonable efforts to finalize permanency findings. Oop, that was a little delayed, sorry. So those are the areas of most importance on the reimbursability submission worksheet. Once that worksheet looks accurate, you go down to that 5th folder under client eligibility log, send it over to Maxis. Maxis workers take action based on that to complete their review and certification of maintenance reimbursement. Once they do that and approve the review and certification, they will send a referral back to SSIS, and this is a screenshot of the information that comes back. So this is in that 2nd folder under client eligibility log, the 4E reimbursability folder. And again, I like to look at this center box, monthly reimbursability test results, reimbursable. So This would be displayed for each month in the review period, or at the top of the screen here, you can see that it lists each month individually as well. So this one that we're showing down on the screen is a reimbursable month, but there are also some months that show non-reimbursable. So you can look right in that second folder under client eligibility log and see which months your agency qualified for reimbursement, maintenance reimbursement, and which months may not have been or may not be reimbursable. All right, that is in a nutshell the flow of information, the workflow of information through the referral back and forth from SSIS to Maxis. Now we'll open it up for questions in regard to that second half and then any overall questions.
Thanks, Paula. Going back to the court action screen, how do you date it when the court order states that the order is effective the date it was ordered in court, or the date of the judge's signature, whichever is earlier? Do you still use the judge's signature date for the disposition part? This is from Sharon.
Okay, if I'm understanding that correctly, no, that sounds like that specific language was saying use whichever was earlier, which in that case would be the court hearing date. But that's a good point to make, is that if an order says to specifically use a certain date, there occasionally we run across that where an order will say this order is effective and it gives a date. If that happens to be different than the hearing date, you would want to consider that. Typically, we use the hearing date, not a judge's signature date, because depending on your court system, judges can sign an order, anywhere from the same day to I've seen orders signed 6 weeks later. And action had already been taken 6 weeks prior based on the disposition at the court hearing. Okay, hopefully that answered the question.
Then Kathy is asking, what if the child is a newborn and there is no PMI number? This is kind of going back to your Maxis slide where a referral is received. And
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't mention that. Yes, referrals do come over without a PMI number. In that foster care referral report in Maxis, that field will just be left blank. What that means is when that referral was sent over, it did not match to a child who has already been known to Maxis. So then that PMI number field will just be left blank. And I should have pointed that out on that little fake report that I had up. There were some that had a PMI number listed, and then there were some that did not. That's a situation where when the submission came over from SSIS, it did not find a child that child was already known to Maxis, but it does display that referral on the referral report in Maxis.
Thank you.
Debbie, yeah, Debbie, if you have anything to add, certainly jump in if I'm missing something.
All right. From Janice, on the foster care submissions to Maxis screen, what submit reason do we use when we've entered a new court action and need to submit to Maxis the new ongoing review, reasonable efforts to finalize permanency plan? And then she thinks you may have answered her question, but I just want to verify that you want to use 05 reimbursability review.
That is correct.
Okay. Carol asks, is there a way to flag the case in SSIS itself, or do we have to come up with our own way to flag it?
I was going to say, maybe one of you can address that.
I can try and take a stab at it. I had a side conversation in our group chat with the SSIS business section, and there were a lot of suggestions to use Post-its, but I'm not going to endorse that. So do not use Post-its to keep track of your cases. You know, there's a couple of ways to do things in SSIS. I mean, you can set a reminder for yourself to review a particular case, and you can find out how to do that by looking at the alerts and reminders e-learning with SSIS Essentials if you'd like, or otherwise there's probably a job aid or two on our SSIS resource page. But some agencies may have a way to flag these cases themselves. So you'd probably want to talk to your SSIS mentor or your supervisor. And if you don't already have a system, you may want to develop one external to SSIS.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah. Then Amy asks, if I heard correctly, adjudications should also have a Maxis submission and not just an update to the reimbursability worksheet. If so, what submit reason do we use?
I would recommend, let's see, if it's a CHIPS adjudication, it's on the reimbursability submission worksheet because that impacts the date reviews and certification are review for certification are due. So I guess I would recommend reimbursability review for that one as well. When you're sending either CHIPS adjudication or the reasonable efforts to finalize permanency findings.
Okay.
They're both on that reimbursability worksheet.
Okay. Looks like Amy also chimed in and feels like you answered her question. So that's good. Pamela, has the Title IV foster care presentation Paula created in October of 2019 been updated, or does this replace it?
So if it was for a full Title IV overview training, I'm not sure which PowerPoint you might be speaking to. We have several different, we train on Title IV policy overview, the submission from SSIS to Maxis piece, the AFDC relatedness policies, which are typically handled by eligibility workers. So there's several different trainings that we do or can do, and then we do specialized trainings like this for this group. So I'm not sure which training it was, but most likely there have been some changes since 2019. Most specifically, the automatic MA for the all children in foster care that needs to get done ASAP. So I would say it probably has changed, and we're more than happy to complete another training for your agency. And any one of those that I mentioned, whether you want to focus on 4E policy or the interface process or AFDC relatedness, you just let us know what your agency's needs are. I don't even know what county or agency that was, but whoever it was, don't hesitate to reach out. Oh, and I forgot to put maybe I should stop sharing because I'm not sure how to put our emails in the chat while I'm sharing.
Okay. There's a few more questions here. Erica asks, which boxes do the dates go in the court actions tab? There are 3 date boxes. Are we talking about the child findings tab, maybe?
Right, and those are 3 different court findings.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is best interest or contrary to the welfare. The second one, I'm just picturing it because I don't have the screen in front of me, but is the reasonable efforts to prevent placement. And then the third one is reasonable efforts to finalize permanency. So those are all separate findings and should be entered, in the appropriate place. Does that make sense? Does that help?
I think so, if I'm gauging the question correctly. But Erica, if you have a follow-up, you may put that follow-up in the chat. Maria asks, if we have the reasonable efforts statement in an emergency protective order for custody order, and then the best interest statement, and again, the reasonable efforts in the actual order from the EPC hearing, what do we put as the order in SSIS? The emergency protective care order is based on our ex parte motion for custody. So do we use that or the actual EPC hearing date and order? We've gotten denied for 4E because the best interest is not in the emergency protective care order for custody.
Right. If there is an ex parte order giving the agency the authority to locate that child and bring them into custody and transfers custody to the social service agency, that is the initial removal order and must include the best interest or contrary to the welfare finding. So that's, I'm hearing that that's a reason that you've had to deny 4E. So that's really a training issue with your court staff, maybe your county attorney's office, judges. That's something that your CJI group could discuss. There's lots of ways to get that information to your court folks. Either, either sending that yourselves, having that conversation yourselves, or asking someone from, like we have an attorney that does a lot of work with courts.
You might also want to send that particular situation to one of us, and we can look through it, make any suggestions, or see if we have any alternatives to denying Title 4E and what we can do. So yeah, we should be able to help you, and our team should be able to get you some guidance on those types of situations too.
Okay, and I see Maria said thanks. We have a brand new judge, so yep, add it to your next CJI meeting. I just a few minutes ago put the our email addresses in the chat as well, mine and Debbie's. Right now, there are just 2 Title 4E trainers right now. Our 3rd trainer is out on a medical leave. Hopefully coming back soon, but we do not have a date.
Thanks, Paula. There's one additional question here. How serious is it if we use the wrong submit reason? I have always used the 04 send corrected data when I've added the adjudication date.
It is not serious at all. It's just helpful to use the thing that best fits the situation, and that using 04 send corrected data wouldn't be bad either. That one's kind of out there, the CHIPS adjudication date. It's related to reimbursability, so that's why I suggested that, but it's not a problem if you've used a different reason.
All right, I think that is the last question. Marcia did put a link to the alerts and reminders job aid in the chat for those who may want to link over to that to help flag your cases. And I think I'm going to hand it back over to MC Ross to close us out. Unless
All
you
right.
have
Well,
any closing remarks, Paula or Debbie. Sorry.
Nope, I'll just say thank you all for connecting and being interested in the accuracy of your Title 4 eligibility determinations, because we are on the calendar again for our next federal Title 4 review / audit. We're not supposed to call it an audit, but it is. So Minnesota is on the calendar again for our next Title 4 review. So it's very important and perfect timing to try to maintain your accuracy of determinations and communications.
I'm so sorry, Ross and Paula, but one question did sneak in here at the end. Not sure if you can answer this. In order for a facility to be added to the Title 4E group providers search, there needs to be a lead agency that handles the yearly contracting with the facility. Does the county of the facility do the contract or the county that has a consumer at the facility?
I cannot answer that. That's more into the entry of the provider. Debbie, do you have anything? But if you do submit that question to us, we can certainly route it to the right folks. Go ahead and send it via email and we'll get it to someone that can answer it.
Okay.
And I see
And then-
there's a couple
yeah.
more. Yeah.
They're sneaking in here.
Yeah,
there are three date boxes in the court actions tab. This is a follow-up from that previous one. A filing date box, a middle date box, and a lower date box.
Oh, yeah. So you weren't talking about child findings. You were talking about the actual
Right.
court action screen. Okay. So the filing date box is the petition filing date. So that is the date the petition was filed with court admin. And that's usually stamped or computer generated date right on the petition. So you would use that actual petition filing date in that field. Middle date box and lower date box. I think is the middle date box, is that the date of the hearing? I believe. I'm trying to picture it without having that screen open.
Yes, that would be
Okay.
the date of the hearing, and the bottom one would be the disposition date.
So those should both be the date of the hearing.
Yes, correct.
All right. And then Lisa's asking, when is the Minnesota review?
Oh, yeah. We are scheduled for the feds to review Minnesota's Title IV in 2026. Don't think we have an exact date yet for the actual on-site review, but we do know that our period under review that they will be selecting cases from starts April 1st, 2025. So we are less than a year from when our selection of case, from the period of time that our cases will be selected for that review.
Okay.
All right, and thanks again, everyone. I will go back on mute.
All right, over to you, Ross.
All righty. Thank you. Thanks, Paula and Debbie. Wow, that's a lot of great information that was just given to us, huh? There are a couple of more announcements, so please don't go away yet. And the first one up to talk a little bit is Erica.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Erica Peterson, a child welfare subject matter expert in SSIS business operations. First little update is about the special release coming up. In coordination with the establishment of the new Department of Children, Youth and Families, DCYF, which begins July 1st, a special SSIS release will occur. This special release will include updates made up of the most critical existing SSIS documents requiring DCYF information, language, and logo updates. These are primarily SSIS documents that are used with clients as well as documents of a legal nature. This does not include all documents that require updates related to the new department. The remaining documents will be updated within the regular SSIS quarterly release schedule. A list of the affected documents, including those that will require mentors to reattach an RTF document template header, will be shared out prior to the special release. And that special release is Monday, July 1st between 6 and 8 a.m. SSIS will be unavailable during that time. Okay, and then the other update that I have for you is on the non-caregiver trafficking assessment. This assessment response was created out of the 2023 legislative session, and it goes into effect on July 1st, 2024. This track is used for all allegations of sex trafficking by a non-caregiver alleged offender. The official non-caregiver assessment track will be in the 24-3 SSIS release on August 21st. So interim guidance has been developed for agencies to follow from July 1st through August 20th. The guidance was included in last week's SSIS update bulletin. Of note, since these will be screened in as investigations, the MIFPA 24-hour notice will need to be sent. Also, there's a short video that walks through this guidance that's available on the Child Welfare Training Academy website. And then I also have the link in the slides. And if there are questions that arise in terms of SSIS guidance during that interim time, please send in a help desk ticket.
Okay, thanks, Erica. Last couple of things I do want to mention is that there is the SSIS resource page available for you in partner link to find everything you need to know about the 24.2 release, including what's new, release notes, and known defects. Also, you have your SSIS worker documentation and your fiscal documentation, as well as some online training for fiscal. So don't forget to check out your SSIS resource page. For this coffee talk and any past coffee talks, we have some information on this slide. One is if you have any questions about this particular coffee talk, please reach out to the SSIS help desk and they'll make sure that your questions are answered. And to view any past coffee talks, always remember that the Minnesota Child Welfare Academy SSIS training site is available with all that information as well. No, you have not missed out on anything if you didn't receive a calendar invite for a July coffee talk. We're not going to have one in July. The next one is actually going to be in August. So you can set a reminder or wait for your calendar invite to come in for August 20th from 9 to 10:30. More info will be coming from Heidi. Have a safe and fun 4th of July, since there's not going to be a coffee talk in July. We're taking the month off of coffee talk since there's a lot of vacations and everything going on out there. So have fun. And that's it for today's SSIS coffee talk. Thank you for joining us, and hope to see you on the next one. Stay golden, Minnesota. Radio Ross out.